Today we're talking about blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
We're all here. Look at this crew.
This is the girl.
King's all here.
Kind of fitting for United Service.
It's hard
The
for
band,
someone.
the band in town.
Good word. Band is back in town. Sorry.
Boys are back in town.
I know, but I was like, I'm a girl, so I didn't want to say the boys are back in town. Lawyered. I knew.
Hey, it's summer. I feel like it's summer. Rachel said earlier that she doesn't feel like it's summer yet.
Just because of the weather.
9 days.
But
Rachel, my wife would say that you have 9 days till summer. She is firm on that.
Yeah, except technically I think it's the 20th this year.
oh my
Is it
goodness.
really?
But the 20th.
So the
I like the
solstice?
technicalities
Yeah.
of everybody.
Yep.
I feel like the
20th.
solstice should be in the middle of summer, not in the first day.
Not
of
the
summer.
first day of
Yeah.
summer.
It has to
pretty
do with
good.
the sun. That's
I'm
when you
spiraling
know it's summer.
internally right now.
8 days.
Which
The
part?
days are getting shorter.
Yeah.
8 days till it gets shorter.
No.
It's been so smoky. It hasn't even been light.
Maybe that's
So
why
we've
I
got-
feel like it. Yeah, it's been raining.
So this Sunday is our Christmas United service.
Next week is
Yeah.
we're all going to the state fair.
Oh my goodness.
Fireworks.
No. Ugh. I think when the kids get done with school, it feels like summer. But the kids are done with school, but we haven't really.
He's not out of town.
I know, and I think that's why I'm confused because it's like there wasn't like we left as soon as school was over to just go up north, and then I don't know. Like usually there's this like, and then Grace is out of town because she's on a trip to the East Coast. She's in Washington D.C. And so it is so fun, and I just feel very, I don't know, like it hasn't been where everybody just
So
hears.
your kids are all grown up now. You don't see them anymore.
Yeah, they don't care. Gracie told, okay. Oh, my
Wow.
sister.
You can't say
This is
these
not
things on a
terrible.
podcast.
Well, she just is okay with not. A friend of mine is chaperoning, and she's like, she asked her if she texted us yet, and she's like, I'll text them if I'm dying. And I'm like, oh, this is yeah.
I'm pretty sure I
we're
said
here.
the same thing about my parents.
Yeah. So she's ready. She's ready to go to college, and she's over us. She's done.
I think, like high school, specifically less middle school for sure. Not middle school. We didn't do any. Like a middle school trip would be like to
Yeah.
St. Cloud.
I know.
But
It's
this is a
crazy.
big trip.
It was a great trip.
But chaperoning a high school trip back when I was in high school would have been rough. Because I don't know how many, like, if vandalism's illegal, probably is.
I think so.
There's a lot of vandalism, probably not much other terrible
Oh.
things, but it's just for some reason, maybe it's still true, but it's like the people in my world when they were 16, like there was enjoyable things were like sports and stuff, but also breaking everything.
What were the names of these people?
I won't name
Can you
names.
put them on the
Because
on
you
the
can't.
podcast?
You
Put
can
that on
name
the podcast.
nicknames.
I can name them all. No, but I just think that I'm sure.
I think that's just a
I'm
boy
sure middle.
That's true.
thing. Boys break everything. To this day,
Do they today?
you break a lot of things.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I know, when somebody breaks something around me, like I love it in the coffee shop world. Somebody will break some coffee shop thing, a barista, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I broke it." And I'm like, "I've broken 3 of those this month."
This morning.
There's a social media trend of guys breaking things or shattering
On
ice
purpose?
or things, and they always go for the boys, and then they break it.
Mhm.
So there's a thing about guys liking to break things. It exists.
I don't think I'm gonna ever
I won't fit in there.
scream for the boys, but
Also okay. Oh my.
what would people?
Oh wait.
Yeah.
Okay. Keep going. Greg is hurting. I don't know where to go from there, but
Yep.
okay. I think I like as a
Are you
girl,
gonna
I
jump
like to
on?
break things, but I feel real bad afterwards. Like, but it's usually on
I feel
accident.
bad.
Do okay.
I have felt bad.
I have felt bad.
I don't like breaking. I mean, as an adult, I don't know. That was part of the like before brain develops. Maybe this is all boys, but for sure, as boys are in brain stem is not connected correctly. in that era, there is like you don't feel bad about breaking things, and you don't even like you feel the opposite of breaking somebody else's things.
You like breaking someone else's things? Oh.
Like it's or
I think
there's-
you're just in the moment. Like,
yeah.
how cool will this be on Instagram? And then you go, oh,
Yeah. Probably, well, this is a test. This is a survey. If you have taken random things and stood very close to a brick wall and thrown it as hard as you can to see it explode,
There was a video.
Have
on
you done
Instagram-
that?
No, I don't think so. But there was a video on Instagram.
I've done it in the last week.
There was a coffee shop that some kids took their planter, like their outdoor planter with plants in it and stuff. And like they caught him on video, like picking up the planter and then running with it. And then like these two boys and a girl, but like the girl was just watching, but these two boys just like threw it to the ground and it exploded everywhere. And like the coffee shop was trying to find the kids that were destroying their things. I think they did, but I was like, oh, and they're probably, maybe their brainstem is not
Yeah.
properly connected
There's a
yet,
whole
but
YouTube channel of guys that go up to really high things and just throw things off the top. That's what
Yeah.
happens.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's the most entertaining thing ever.
How ridiculous. Oh,
The squishy gorilla. Squishy gorilla, good.
I like they throw the anchor or the anvil off the top of the dam and hit the car with it. It's so
Well, that's-
satisfying.
oh,
Gardner Hardware, which used to be right behind
Oh, yeah.
Corner Coffee North Loop, used to annually would do an anvil drop off of the roof of their building. And in fact, I have bought a couple of old freight carts that are now coffee tables in my life, my world, and one of them has, you can see where they spray painted the anvil red, and there's a little haze in the shape of an anvil on there. So it's like it's North Loop nostalgia gold
Yeah.
right there. But they would throw the anvil like and all this buildup, and it was like if you see an event or you go to an event where the people putting on the event are not really like event people, or like when you're at an event and there's a couple hundred people there and there's like whoever's emceeing
yeah.
is not an MC. It was like that was part of the whole enjoyment of the Gardner Hardware thing. They would like scream, cheer. They would go, "Now we're going to, what do you got up there? Watermelons!" They throw watermelons onto a car, and then they would like, "What else you got?" And then finally they would throw the anvil, and people would cheer. And they're like, "Do you want to do it again?" And they would literally have one employee take the stairs and carry the anvil back up there. So it's like,
No.
we're gonna do it again. And then it's like 11 minutes of waiting. Okay. And then after all of it, then they would awkwardly take a couple of sawzalls and cut the car in half with just sawzalls. And so a sawzall is an impressive tool, but it is very anticlimactic to have
After
40 minutes of
Yeah.
cutting a car.
Yeah.
Like, this is really entertaining.
Oh.
And I hear actually that the pencil sharpening has some of the same things. It's not really done by event people. And
Oh,
Kaya went to it and said it was an hour of pain.
yeah. I don't understand that at all. Like,
Did you go to it?
no, but I'm watching, like, I saw pictures of it and I'm like, they're sharpening a pencil.
Which
It's a large
Well,
pencil,
there could be so many fun, like
Yes.
fancy things you could do, but
but
they're like
it's
they
just
did.
a pencil.
Kaya had a little bit of video of it. They said, "We're going to do a phone call to the pencil," and Kaya it's like a 7-minute phone call of like, "Hey, pencil, hello. What are you up to today?" "I'm getting sharpened." Like a 7-minute, very, very slow
That's a
conversation.
2-second call.
And so that's when you have, again,
Oh,
I think pastors around the world should get paid to run these types of events.
absolutely,
Because
absolutely.
you can keep something
This
moving.
is the side job. This
Yeah.
is the gig.
This is the hustle. Yeah. And so
As long as we're, I don't know, doing it for,
for
good,
the for the
for the
Lord,
good of people.
for smashing of cars or breaking of necks.
Mm.
And that being said, there
Make a
are
big
several
spread.
pastors out there whose brain stems aren't connected either. So
When I go to an event, I hate events like that more than anything in the world. I'm the first one to persecute them.
Pencil sharpening
I
event?
would hate
you
it.
go to it?
No,
No.
but I would make fun of it.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
understandable.
it's
Depends on how good the food is.
I mean, if there's side things happening,
If it's
if
boring,
it's just
but I
sharpening
made
a
it good
pencil,
food,
like, and like, but there could, like you said, there could be fun things.
Yeah. Well, have you ever been to an event that you the sound has been going poorly and you want to get up from being a observer to a sound fixer?
Oh man.
I'm not at that event very long,
I
but yes.
at a wedding. I actually did the wedding, but at the reception, it was in Wisconsin. This is over a decade ago. Corner church person. They got married in Wisconsin, and when the reception was happening, the DJ was just struggling, feedback, all this stuff, and so he got up, and like for quite a while. And so he got up to go to the bathroom. I saw him go into the bathroom, and so I quickly went behind the thing, and I just turned the monitor feed down to 0, and because that was just constantly feeding back. And he came back, and it never fed back again. But I had to wait till he left.
Yeah.
I just turned it on and said, "Hang on a second," and
I love it.
Mhm.
We just did an event, this will be the last thing, but we just did an event where we had a DJ for a kids event at a school, and he kept playing songs that like had to be bleeped out. And I was like, this is a kids party. So I had to kindly give him a look, and he's like, sorry. And I was like, oh, okay, let's not do that.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Don't worry, it's the kids' bought version.
Uh-huh.
There's a
Okay.
kid, there is a
Yeah,
kids'
there
bought
is.
version.
There should
There
not
is.
be, and that is
that's what.
Nope.
okay.
Speaking of
So-
persecution,
Righteousness, making things right with God and people. Let's talk about that.
I
Oh,
so
now where to go with
I have heard repeatedly throughout this series. There's a people in our church community have this growing like appreciation, love, like seeing the depth of these beatitudes. And I think at a surface level, it almost feels like Jesus, like at a very like distant surface level, you could say, well, Jesus started by sharing this poem at the beginning while people were being seated to get their attention.
mhm.
When you dive in and you really process what these statements are, it is boy, they're profound, so simple, so short and succinct, which is really hard
Yeah.
to do. But it's and so to look into the eyes of these people, this incredibly diverse group that are some are really suffering and struggling, some are trying to preserve the status quo or places of power, authority.
Mhm.
Some people are complete outsiders and don't have a clue about Jewish tradition, yet alone who, if there isn't, they don't think he's the Messiah or anything, but definitely under Roman oppression. And Jesus starts to just again name like blessed outside of circumstance or situation, blessed this internal being, this at peace with God. It's incredible that word to say that over and over again, and then to link it together with not being capable, realizing you're needing God, because in that moment you get God, and I won't go through them all, but it's incredible. And so today, when he says, "Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness," which that is, it's important for us to have been talking about this. That's important to grab that as a phrase or as an idea. Not blessed are those who are persecuted, period, and blessed are those because of righteousness. It's persecuted because of righteousness. And theirs is the kingdom, for theirs is the kingdom of God. And so we talked about this quite a bit in the preparation of this, is that we have responsibility for righteousness. We don't have responsibility for being persecuted. And things can get weird when you feel like your responsibility is to, maybe that's the disconnected brainstem, that you'd say. You know what, I know when I'm doing good things when I'm making people upset or making people hate me. And or I'm being angsty. And maybe I have a little bit of that. Stop.
Think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
I think the thing I've been thinking a lot about with righteousness is like I like how does the word righteousness make people feel? Like, do you have good feelings about the word righteousness, or like I don't know, what do you guys feel? Nothing?
Well, the issue with this is self-righteousness.
Yeah.
Most people, the tendency is to try to measure your own righteousness, which is not necessarily what this is saying or even called. It's not our responsibility to try to be,
Yeah.
like view ourselves as righteous.
Yeah.
But being righteous means that should mean it's measured by God.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even know if it's helpful to think like I'm righteous in this. I don't know if that's even healthy.
No,
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
I
Or
don't know
it
where
can
the
be
line
real.
is to self-righteousness. I think you could even do something good in a self-righteous way and it's disgusting.
Yeah. Agreed. What were you gonna say, Ty?
Yeah, well, the Beatitudes have this kind of like pendulum swing from like descriptive, it's a situational thing, it's not necessarily something you can achieve. Then it swings into prescriptive things that we should be pursuing. This is kind of a swing back into descriptive. This is more situational,
Yeah, like
and an outflowing of you becoming through relationship with God, but it's not. I don't want to see this. I see righteousness is something that comes from relationship with God. Being persecuted is not something like you should. I think we're all in agreement we shouldn't like seek after. But yeah, so this is like one of those moments where it's just like it's really easy, especially if we're going line by line, to be like, this is a prescription. Let's go get persecuted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think when I think about righteousness, I think that if it's being at peace with God or doing not being adverse to God's will or His way, or there's a lot of ways to describe the depths of what truly is righteousness, and you can in a non-theist or non-religious environment to say, do you know what is right to do and what is wrong to do, or how do you know? And I think that I hope we can like ask this question to the room and just feel on Sunday, just feel like the complexity of this processing is that if you really answer the question, how do you know what's right to do? You can give quick answers of like your gut or it just is or whatever, but if you go under the surface of that, it's way more complex. And like Greg alluded to earlier, is that just because you say one thing in one moment is right, and even one thing in one moment for one person being right, a person that might be exactly parallel with them, it may not be right. And so when we have moments where you say, oh, I figured out this is the right thing to do, and then you copy and paste that everywhere, I mean, terrible things happen.
Mhm.
And on the inverse, you say, well, that is not the right thing for me or them to do, so that should never happen. Also, not necessarily right. And so to build some contextual foundation in that, to think about, I mean, there's lots of different pathways we could do to process this, but Jesus performed several miracles on the Sabbath, and the religious law, the expectation that they had coming from Exodus 20 was that the day of Sabbath was to be a day of rest, not laboring.
Mhm.
And I mean, we can list off a quick 7 moments where Jesus performed miracles and helping people on the Sabbath, and this just made the religious authorities irate, and to the end of the narrative of the Gospels, it was part of the fuel where leading to Jesus's arrest, persecution, death, and so. But Jesus looked at the religious authorities and said, listen, if your donkey fell in a well or your kid fell in a well on the Sabbath, wouldn't you pull them out? And to bring that parallel to, again, that's right, knowing your responsibility and doing what's right, even in the complexity of other expectations.
Yeah.
And so to dig into that, what actually makes something right. And Jesus said in Mark chapter 2, this was not about, the disciples were taking handfuls of grain and snacking as they're walking through a field on the Sabbath. And in the context of that, Jesus says the Sabbath was made for man, not the man made for the Sabbath. And so when I think about right, it's not simple.
No. Well, and like, I think that I was trying to figure out what I define as righteousness, and like,
Mm.
just when we're trying to like look into what the old words mean and what it meant in the Old Testament and how it connected to the New Testament, and like over and over again, it seems like it's right relationship with God and right relationship with people. Like it
Yeah.
seems like it's so much about community,
Yeah.
right relationship in community, and like it's so. When I think about that, when I think about, okay, this is right relationship with God, it's right relationship with people, right relationship in community, like, why would you be persecuted for that? If you're
Yeah.
trying to make relationships right, like, why would you be persecuted for that? And like, it is so much what one person thinks is right versus another
Mm.
person, and like how that can be so confusing. And like, even if you're trying to make right relationship with God and right relationship with people, it doesn't always translate to somebody else really enjoying that.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just kind of it can be confusing, I feel like.
I think too, culturally, we've come a long way in society, and just like the things that are normative. You think about like the practice of in the Roman Empire, if you had a kid that you didn't want, maybe they were born a girl and you wanted a boy, so you had an heir. You'd go to the graveyard, and you'd be going to the graveyard, and then Christians would go and adopt these children, which we would all say is like that's a right thing, not to leave a baby to die from exposure. But that was considered a wrong thing back then, and they were considered weird. They were considered to be grave robbers, and
Yeah.
that tarnished their reputation and they made them outcasts of society. So like, I think like using that early church example, what are the things that society would say, yeah, this is normative, like as Christians, we can rally on and be like, oh, we're here to care for people who are outcasts, who are least of these, who can't defend themselves, the powerless. And that's that. Yeah, that's like I don't have an answer for that, but that's I think like directionally.
Yeah, and again, I mean, this is white hot in culture, and it's easy to throw the Pharisees under the bus or anybody, but I think that's such a great example. Again, if you look through a list of, anybody can Google miracles Jesus performed on the Sabbath and look at that list, and you just go, all right, but here a person with dropsy, so which is like painful swelling, it is disfiguring and pretty awful. And Jesus heals this guy on the Sabbath, and the Pharisees freak out. And at a surface level, you just go, wouldn't you, others stare of blind people with leprosy, like, wouldn't you be so excited that these people were helped?
Mhm.
And I think that that human nature is, again, not the Pharisees are not the bottom of the bottom. I think that's just part of it's so easy in humanity's worldview to just to miss the benefit or the help of people and find something else to just tear people down about. And if we're called to serve the helpless, the helpless, helping the helpless will gain some persecution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think as a found, I think this will be pretty fun, but like to invite people to have a list of questions about responsibility, and then for them to write a little bit about these different things that they have responsibilities in their life. It's not what are you responsible for, but who or what depends on you each day. If your daily life or a job title, what would it be? That kind of these types of questions. And because I think the things that we're responsible for are a great way to get to know somebody. Like what do you do is one thing, but in what do you do, what are you responsible for in your family? What are some things that you're responsible for? It doesn't matter your age, your position, or title. What we have and feel responsibility for says a lot about ourselves, and so that'll be fun to do. But then to bring this back to, we have a responsibility to righteousness.
Yeah.
And when who we are as followers of Jesus, a lot is said about who we are, or who we see Jesus as how we would follow through in our calling and how we we take the responsibility of being righteous in our world? I mean, the obvious, the other direction would be is my responsibility is to be hated by others, but
I
that
think-
doesn't work.
I think like what Greg was said about like self-righteousness and us
Mm.
naming it is like interesting because I think we're not supposed like I think when we think we're righteous, it does get weird and twisted and we get messy.
I
But at
haven't
the
sinned
same time-
in quite a while.
Yeah. Not but at the same time. And at the same time, like
Yeah.
in Matthew 5:6, it says to hunger and thirst and crave righteousness.
Mm.
So I think it's like having this lens of, okay, like if I'm living in a way that my goal is to like seek right relationship with people, right relationship with God, and right relationship in community, like if that's where my lens is, like that's what I'm aiming for, but to name it and be like, I've done all that already, that's where it gets gross. Like I think, but if we're like mentally going, this is my goal is to live this way, to like aim for this and to hunger for that.
Yeah.
And then all of that, like I think that's where we're supposed to live, but I don't think we're supposed to go to the other side where we think we've accomplished it
Hmm.
and we've become these things. And because like truthfully, like in the Bible over and over again, the person that makes us righteous is Jesus. Like
Yep.
over and over again, we see like we can't get there. Like we aimed, it's like the sanctified because of him and working towards sanctification or the kingdom now versus kingdom not. Like we're not there. We're not gonna like Jesus is the only thing that makes us righteous. And at the same time, we're supposed to hunger and thirst to be caring for like because it just when I look at the definition of righteousness and what it is, it's so community minded. Like it's about relationship and being in right relationship with people. And I think that's where I want to think. That's where I want my mindset to be.
Yeah.
But I don't think I can ever be like, oh, I've made it and I
Yeah.
did it on my own.
Well, the opposite of righteousness is self-righteousness.
Yeah.
You know, they're
That's fine.
the a truly righteous person is somebody who is not elevating self, but
Yeah.
is elevating those around them. Is
Yeah.
serving, is figuring out a way to put themselves in a way that uplifts others.
Yeah.
That's the most Christ-like picture.
Yeah.
But a self-righteous person is literally the opposite of that
Yeah.
in every way possible.
And I love smashing it together
I love
with
that too.
responsibility because, again, if our responsibility, it's not apart from Christ
Mm-hmm.
and it's not apart from grace.
Yeah.
And if we just say, well, it's so easy to do the math and say, well, if it's not up to me, then I may as well just be self-righteous to
Yeah.
the max and then ask Jesus to deal with it. But to just truly see that, it might not necessarily be easy and it may not make a bunch of fans and it will make you stand out and it is upside down. But if you elevate others over yourself and take that on as let that be a part of your being, and the kingdom of God, kingdom of heaven is what Matthew says. The kingdom of heaven is yours.
Yeah.
You're in it. And I love, in the vernacular that's building here, Matthew is builds a reputation. It's in the 20s, the number of times he says kingdom of heaven in his gospel. But the continual pointing to is that it's not just a someday thing. It's like, look around,
It's now.
you're in it.
Yeah.
You're in it. And it's not kingdom of heaven like someday when we're after we die, or whatever the
Mhm.
context you want to put in that, but is to say, so when you take on the responsibility of elevating others, being righteous, you're welcome to heaven.
Well, I think it's like the Beatitudes are the roadmap to what
Yeah.
the kingdom of heaven looks like, and thinking of all of these things and how do we live them out now, even though they're not. It feels pretty counterintuitive. Like it doesn't feel like it, but
Yeah.
like as the church, as like a Christ community or serving Christ community, like how do we see this in our lives now? Like how do we
Yep.
see people that are mourning and make sure they're comforted? And how do we live that out? How do we be merciful because we'll receive mercy? And how do we hunger and thirst for this? And I don't know, it just makes me go, okay, like some of this isn't yet. And also I do feel this calling to go, okay, like how do we, if we look at the Beatitudes, what does that look like in our communities, in our church, in not just in church, but like, I mean, we don't talk about revival much, but this one definition I read of revival was when revival is real, it's not just in the church, it's making a difference in the neighborhood, in your community. And I think that's like what we want as a church. We want to see how we can make a difference in our communities. And I don't know, like it's a really beautiful place to be, and also complicated.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll be persecuted for it, which is weird, but also true.
Yeah. And it's not the multitude, but in the micro of a healthy body of Christ and community is we have a small group of people that are saying, all right, I'm going to set myself aside.
Yeah.
And I'm going to seek to be right and righteous, and no matter its resistance. And I'm going to deal with how complex it is to know what is right and what is righteous, and set my own wants and desires aside and be conscientious, all these things. And then in the midst of that, again, the attitude says, ta-da!
Yeah.
Kingdom of heaven.
Well, I wondered too that, talk about being persecuted for righteousness. And, we're talking about this a little earlier, it's knowing what's right. And it's, that's how C.S. Lewis starts Mere Christianity. So it's 5 pages or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Talking about we just know what's right. When we see this happen, we know it's wrong. And I think in a lot of ways, there's a lot of times when we superimpose what we say is right, but it's over this, and it's like, I don't know if we can get away from that. But I wonder if that persecution comes when they see someone else doing what they know is right, but they got this superimposition, over what they know is right, and they see someone else doing that, makes them uncomfortable. They're like, then they're like, then that's where the persecution comes from. Whether or not this is conscious, that superimposition of those other values is could be completely subconscious, but something twinges at them. They're like, oh, persecution, and then that's maybe where that comes from, that discomfort, because they know somehow.
I think so. I think that happens. And like persecution, just to like, I feel like that word is another weird word that we like feel. And it's just like, I like this. It's like pushing away, driving away, pushed out. Like it's not necessarily this, like, I think the Old Testament or the New Testament in Acts talks about persecution a lot. And I don't think any of us are experiencing what they experienced, but being pushed away.
Sing it.
Which is wrap up.
I have experienced, maybe you guys have also experienced that, and we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but the focus on being persecuted, the like, well, I have to be persecuted to know that I'm striving for it. Like, I think has really damaged the striving for righteousness.
Yeah.
If we focus on the being persecuted, because then you're always like, okay, I'm gonna do this thing because it's like Jesus, but like what's gonna hit me for, and I think just the focus on strive to be righteous, and then I would add and enjoy it, like Jesus, like that joy and everything that's there. I think doing good is always good, right? So do good and be righteous, and don't live in like that tense fear all the time and go, oh, I'm gonna be persecuted, but it's expectation. You could be persecuted, but that's not the focus. The focus is be righteous and enjoy it. Enjoy the journey.
Love that.
See you guys next week.
Bye.